Hello all my dear students, once again I welcome you back to my YouTube channel Modern English with Khandu Dayal. In the first video we have seen the complete analysis of Song of the Open Road by Walt Whitman. Now in this video we are going to see the critical appreciation of the poem Song of the Open Road. But before that we should confirm that what are the points that we need to discuss. First is title of the poem, then the poet, then the theme of the poem, then poetic devices, poetic style, special features of the poem, then moral and the message which is given throughout the poem, then last our opinion, your own opinion, right? So let's start with the first, that is the title of the poem. Song of the Open Road. This is the suitable title for a poem because the poet has mentioned his journey in the way of freedom. In this poem, the poet is describing open road as his metaphoric journey of freedom, independence and sweet memories. It is taken from the collection of Leaves of Grass. Our title is very inspiring. Next point is poet. The information about poet. This poem has written by the great American writer, poet Walt Whitman. He is an American poet who is known as the father of free verse. He is famous for his poems which always talk for freedom, independence, joy of life and existence. And same poem, that is Song of the Open Road, that deals with the independence and the joy of life and existence. The next point is the theme of the poem. Now it is very important point. What is the theme of the poem? Theme means a focused part of information of a particular poem. Now in this poem, the theme is clearly mentioned: the freedom, joy, existence, optimism and self-dependence, even responsibility as well. Now all these are some of the themes of the poem Song of the Open Road. In this poem, the poet who encourages the reader to be true with yourself and enjoy your freedom. Don't expect anything from anyone. You are the one who can make your own future. You can choose your own destiny. Now the theme of the poem, which is very thought-provoking and inspiring, right, wherein we should not supposed to expect anything from anyone, as we have to believe on ourselves, right? And that is what the theme of the poem suggests the reader, to be true to yourself and always take responsibility in your life, right? That is what the theme of the poem talks about, and it is all about freedom, joy, optimistic life and all. Poetic style. Walt Whitman, who composed this poem in a free verse form, he has not used any kind of rhyming scheme and any specific pattern. The length of the stanzas are varied. In shortly, this poem is a free verse. The lines are unrhymed and of varying length. Now this particular poem has written in free verse, wherein there is no rhyming scheme, there is no any tone pattern or any such things, even no rhyming scheme as well. And free verse is very essential when the thoughts are automatically comes from the inner side, and as the thought comes in the mind, the poet always go on writing, and that is known as free verse, wherein the poet will not think about any rhyming scheme, any pattern or stanza pattern or any such things. So as the thought comes in mind, the poet goes on writing. That is what the free verse is all about. And the most important thing is that he is the one who started writing poem in a free verse, and because he is called the father of free verse. Poetic devices. In order to emphasize an idea, the poet has used different sorts of poetical devices, right? What we call figures of speech. The poet has used different symbols in his poem, like freedom, opportunity, optimism, joy of life, and existentialism. He used metaphor, alliteration, repetition, paradox, etc. Right. Now all these are the figures of speech which has used to emphasize the poet's idea, poet's thoughts in the reader. Right. Now the symbols, right, symbols that shows the freedom, opportunity, and a joy of life also used in this poem. Right. If at all the poet wants to convey his idea very strongly, right, so what he will do, he will use such kind of imagery or symbols to convey his thoughts, his ideas to the reader. And the same is the case with the poem Song of the Open Road, in which the poet has used different symbols and figures of speech to emphasize his idea. Special features of the poem. Now what are the special features of the poem? Let us see. This poem has written in a simple language, in a lucid language, which is very simple to understand, easy to understand to a common reader, and it also explains the meaning of a life in a simple words. See, the language which is used in the poem is very lucid and easy to understand to common people. Anyone can understand the language which is used in the poem, as it is a very simple and lucid language. The poem has written in the first person, right, and this is the important features of the poem, that the poem has written in the first person, that is I, which represents individuality, right. These are the two important features of the poem. The first is the language which is used in the poem is very lucid and easy to understand by the common people, and it also, the poem has written in the first person pronoun, right, and which represents the individuality. Now these two features are very important from that point of view. The next point, moral and the message which is given through the poem. In this poem, poet suggests action instead of prediction. We should believe on ourselves. Don't expect anything from anyone. Believe on yourself. It also tells us to be happy and optimistic in life. Now very important message has been given throughout the poem. What the poet says? The poet says we should believe on ourselves, right, which is very important message. And don't expect anything from anyone, right, because the expectations always hurts, and the poet always says that believe on yourself and don't expect anything from anyone. Always try to give your best, right, without expecting anything from anyone, because expectations leads to the sorrow and miseries, right. And the most important thing in life we have to do is that we should be optimistic towards life. We should not be pessimistic, and we should not have a kind of pessimism in our life. We should always feel optimistic, right, and hopeful in our life. That is what the poet wants to convey. The poet wants to give the message throughout the poem, the Song of the Open Road. And last but not the least, which is very important, now your opinion. Now as soon as you understood the poem, now it is our duty, it is reader's duty to give one's opinion. Now what do you feel? What is your opinion? Now whatever you have understood throughout the poem, that is what you are supposed to give in your opinion. So the Song of the Open Road is really a beautiful and inspirational poem. Now this is my own thought. The poet who encourages us to enjoy the life and fill the heart with immense pleasure of a life journey. The poet also encourages us to be free from all expectations and free for life. Now that is what I feel, right? Now your opinion, you are supposed to give your own opinion. What have you felt from the poem? Now see, my opinion says it's a beautiful poem, inspirational one, right, because it encourages us to enjoy the life, and which is a full of optimistic life, optimistic attitude in life, right. While living in life, we should be very happy and encourage each other, and don't expect anything from anyone. That is what I felt about this poem. I hope student you would have understood the poem and its appreciation, right?